One, this is the board meeting for June 24, 2020, 08 a.m. The board meeting of the Board of Registered Nursing being conducted via WebEx. I'd like to call the meeting to order, do a roll call and establish a quorum. Beginning with myself, I'm Michael Jackson, President of the Board, appointed by the Governor in the faculty role.
This is Donna Gerber. I'm the Vice President of the Board. I am a public member appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Imelda Ceja-Butkowitz. I'm a public member appointed by the Governor.
Good morning. I'm Ken Marlborough. I'm a public member appointed by the Senate Rules Committee.
Aaron Skelton, public member appointed by the Governor.
Dolores Trujillo, bedside nurse appointed by the Governor.
Good morning, Elizabeth Woods, appointed by the Governor in the advanced practice role.
Thank you very much. We've established that we have a quorum. Moving on to item 2.0, general instruction for the format of the teleconference call.
Good morning. This is the BRN moderator of the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. The moderator will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When asking your question, please make sure the question is directed at the host in the dropdown. Also, if any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subject to profane language. While you are free to express criticism on negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief, friendly reminder.
BRN moderator, thank you very much for the general instructions. Moving on to item 3.0. Item 3.0 is closed session for the board. The board will convene in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126C3 to deliberate on disciplinary matters, including stipulation and proposed decisions. We'll also be discussing the items on the agenda for item 3.2, pending litigation. 3.2B, the board will convene in closed session pursuant to Government Section Code 11126, subdivision E1, 2B, to confer and receive advice from legal counsel. And finally, item 3.3, personnel. So at this time, BRN members, there should be instructions for you to call in for closed session. And we will leave the WebEx meeting now.
Is that phone number on the...
It's in the DCA email.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We're at item 4.0, reconvene back in open session. BRN moderator, did you need to give some instructions once again?
Sorry, 1 second here. All right, this is the moderator. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. The moderator will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When asking your question, please make sure the question is directed at the host in the dropdown. Also, if any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subject to profane language. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder. Thank you.
Thank you very much, BRN moderator. We're moving on to item 5.0. Item 5.0 is review and vote on whether to approve the minutes of the board meetings held on April 15th and 16th, 2020. That's item 5.1. Item 5.2, May 27th and 28th, 2020. Item 5.3, the June 9th board meeting, 2020. Do I have a motion?
This is Ken Marlborough. I'd like to make a motion, if I can, to approve 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3.
I
will
second.
that. Okay.
Or Emilda, seconded.
Yes.
Are there any public comments related to the board minutes in item 5.0?
We'll be opening up for public comments now. I will be activating the Q&A feature. We have a screen share right now that we are doing for the members of the public to see how they should submit their questions. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to do that. Yes. Board President, we have a member of the public with the name LaShonda Shannon who would like to make a comment. Member of the public, LaShonda Shannon, I will unmute your microphone in a moment and give you a verbal cue once you're muted. LaShonda Shannon, you are unmuted.
Hi, yes, for the May 2020 board meeting minutes under item 8.0, public comment for items not on the agenda, if you could please include my affiliation as done in previous meeting minutes that I am a California Board of Registered Nursing employee. Thank you.
This is Reza, Board Counsel. To the person who just made a comment, may I ask the question? I don't have in front of me the meeting minutes, but just if you could clarify, was the public comment being made in the capacity of a BRN employee, or was it being made in your personal capacity and you'd just like it to note that you are a board employee?
Hi, is my microphone unmuted?
Yes, LaShonda.
Yes. I was speaking on behalf of myself as a member of the public. I'm just asking for it to note that I am also a board employee.
Thank you for the clarification.
Board President, there are no more public comments.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other public comments, I'd like to call for the vote and to include the update of the minutes in the vote. If that's okay with the person who made the motion and the person that seconded.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I call for the vote. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Donna, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz?
Yes.
Betty Woods?
Woods, yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Yes.
Kenneth Marlborough?
Marlboro, yes.
And Karen Skelton, she had to leave for another conflicting issue. Is she still on the caller? No, she's not. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6.0. And this is election of the officers. And at this time, we'll open the floor for nominations.
Mr. Chairman, this is Donna. I would nominate that you continue as president and that Ken Marlborough continue, or not continue, but be appointed vice president of the board going forward for the next year.
I second your motion. Were there any comments from any other board members?
This is Ken Marlboro. I'll accept that nomination.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from any board members? Are there any public comments before we vote?
I've activated the Q&A feature. Please state, I would like to make a comment. I'll pause for a moment. Board President, there are no public comments.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to call for the vote. And this is to Donna's motion. And my second, Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz?
Yes.
Betty Woods?
Woods, yes.
Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Kenneth Marlborough?
Marlboro, yes.
And Karen Skelton? Karen Skelton, she's absent. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item 7.0. And this is presentation by the Attorney General's office.
Carl Sani, I will be unmuting your microphone.
Thank you. President, members of the board, and Executive Officer Melby, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. My name is Carl Sani. I was recently appointed to be the Senior Assistant Attorney General for the licensing section in November of 2019. I succeed Linda Schneider, who you may have met in previous years. Perfect. Can we move to the next slide? This afternoon, I'm going to give hopefully a fairly brief summary of the work that the Attorney General's Office and the licensing section specifically has performed for the Board of Registered Nursing as reported to the legislature in our January 1, 2020 report to the legislature pursuant to Business and Professions Code section 312.2. And what I'm going to do is first give you a brief background of what this data is that I will be talking about. I will talk then briefly about the data collection process, and then I will quickly summarize the findings or the data for all agencies, and then we'll focus in on the data pertaining to the Board of Registered Nursing, which has, as you know, a very robust enforcement program. So let's skip ahead to the next slide. In 2015, SB 467 was passed. It was a consumer protection initiative to help alleviate the delayed timeframes that consumers were facing upon the preparation and submission of a complaint to an agency until the time when that complaint was finally adjudicated by the agency and the matter had been handled by our office, the Attorney General's Office. That section 312.2 became effective in 2016, and it requires certain very specific data to be reported to the legislature and made public. Our first report was done on January 1st, 2018, and it showed the data for the fiscal year of 2016 through 2017. Today, I'll be covering the report that we filed in January of this year, which will cover the period from 2018 to 2019. And as we go ahead, I will be showing you some comparisons between the prior year. In our second report, we actually changed some methodologies about how we collected or how we counted certain data in order to correspond more closely with health quality enforcement, our sister section in the Attorney General's Office that handles other DCA clients, such as the Medical Board and the Board of Psychology. And so we now have kind of a uniform method by which we are collecting and reporting data. So the data that is most interesting, we believe, is the data for this year and the prior year. Our section represents about 36 agencies. And we, together with health quality enforcement, you can skip ahead to the next slide, gather data during the course of the year. And we gather that data on the cases that we handle through what's called ProLaw. It is our case management software system. It's a sophisticated program that is used by 200 people, 200 attorneys in the HQE, the Health Quality Enforcement and Licensing section, and is used across the board in the Attorney General's Office in general. What's interesting about ProLaw is it allows us to track each individual case and to store all of our data in that case. And one of the things we do, and we have instructed all deputy attorney generals to do, is to track certain milestone dates that occur during the course of a year in the handling of a case. And that data gets entered by the deputies. And then at the end of the fiscal year, the paralegals of our section audit and validate that data. And what they do is they ensure that for every data point that is collected, and that could be issues such as when we got the referral from the Board of Registered Nursing, when we prepared a charging document, when the charging document was filed, when a hearing was finally set, when the matter actually went to hearing or was settled perhaps, and then when the hearing was concluded and finally adjudicated by the board upon adoption or other handling of a decision after it's gone to the Office of Administrative Hearings. That process of auditing and validating data takes actually a few months because we are meticulous in the validation process, and it requires certain supporting documentation for every data point that we collect. Let's skip ahead to the next slide. So as a section, and our section is the largest section in the civil section of the Attorney General's office of about 135 attorneys and paralegals. What you're looking at is our summary data for the last 2 fiscal years that have been completed. You see referrals. Now, what's important to recognize when you see referrals, it's only pertaining to referrals of accusation charging matters. So you know that there are a variety of other types of cases which our office handles: statement of issues, petitions for termination of probation, a lot of other types of proceedings. But the report that we're covering today is only concerned with accusations. Accusations comprise about 52% of the work that we do for the Department of Consumer Affairs agencies. And so these data points that you have before you, referrals, show that there was a reduction in referrals of 3,693 to 3,193 when you compare 2017, 18 against 18 and 19. Now, as we go over the data today, what I believe it's really important to recognize is looking at this as a former economics student, all this data are metrics. That is, they're measurements of certain data that's come in. It's not necessarily the same thing as statistics. Statistics are when you compare a pool of data and try to draw, using analytic processes, a trend or a direction or a prediction as to what the data and metrics mean. In our case today, we're only going to be talking about really 2 data points, which is the report of 2017-18 and 18-19. And so statistics per se don't become very meaningful because we only have 2 years to look at. And so you'll see the number of rejected cases, and you'll see further investigations that were requested. And the discrepancy between these numbers, if you consider the volume of cases that we handle above of about 3,200 cases and change, those discrepancies, while it may manifest itself as a 43% increase, is really not that material when you look at it from high on up. The adjudicated matters increased from the 3rd year over the 2nd year. But again, I would be hesitant to have you draw any conclusions for that. Let's go now specifically to the data as it pertains to the Board of Registered Nursing. Skip ahead to the next slide, please. So the legislature specifically asked us to identify in our report the number of accusations that are referred to our office from the Board of Registered Nursing and other clients. And for the Board of Registered Nursing, this shows again a slight uptick from 2017-18 to 19. And again, 14% might seem a material increase, and it may, over the period of years, be demonstrated to have been a material increase. However, again, this cautionary note that because we're dealing with an abrupt cutoff period of our fiscal year, July 1st, we have found that sometimes agencies refer a lot of cases to us at the end of the fiscal year, and sometimes they hold on to them until the beginning of the next fiscal year. So again, the meaningfulness of that data should be looked at very cautiously. Matters rejected, again, 38 to 56 when you're dealing with a pool of 1,000 cases is not that meaningful. Skip ahead to the next slide, please. Now, occasionally we get cases, and this is, again, a ballpark about 5% of the cases, where our office will request further investigation. That's a normal process whereby we identify that the evidence that we have may need to be further investigated for any one of a number of reasons. It may be necessary because additional information, since the referral has come to our attention, and that information needs to be either confirmed or not confirmed. When we request further investigation, the agency will take some time in investigating it and then send it back to our office. And again, the further investigation received here as a percentage of the total cases is not that meaningful. Let's skip ahead to the next slide. Now this number, each of those numbers in isolation, again, are not that significant, but this shows you the volume of cases that the Board of Registered Nursing sends to us. So here you have about 976 cases, and you saw earlier that the total referrals to the licensing section, to our Attorney General's office, may be in the ballpark of 3,500 cases. So you can see that the Board of Registered Nursing comprises a very substantial portion of the work that we do, which is a reason why we try in every way we can to be very attentive to the work of the Board of Registered Nursing, as we do all clients. But we work very closely with obtaining the information and finding ways to deal with the particular cases so that we can process the cases expeditiously. Let's go ahead to the next case, the next slide. Now, the legislature also asked us to identify the number of accusations that were withdrawn in the course of a given year. Again, as a percentage of the total cases, this volume is relatively small. Accusations can be withdrawn for any one of a number of reasons. I've had them withdrawn in cases that I've handled when, for example, the respondent passed away. And when the respondent passes away, obviously there's no need to proceed further with the accusation, and the matter would appropriately be withdrawn. Occasionally, our office receives additional information which is meaningful to the board and its enforcement program, and they determine that they may, in the interest of justice, withdraw that accusation. Perhaps the remediation and mitigation evidence that the respondent provides to us adds another set of information that the board considers carefully and determines warrants a withdrawal of the accusation. Accusations that are adjudicated, you can see again that roughly 900-ish cases were adjudicated last year. That's a very significant volume of cases, again, and showing, again, a marginal increase. But again, year to year, that's not necessarily suggestive of much. Let's go to the next slide. This slide shows the average number of days from the time when an accusation is received in our, when a referral is received from our office to the time when an accusation is filed. This is something that we pay close attention to. And then the second figure is accusations filed after further investigation. These are numbers which over time we hope to improve upon. Let's go ahead to the next slide. We're coming up to the end of this set of data that the legislature requests for us. These are accusations filed to settlement. How long does it take to get an accusation from the time of filing to the resolution of a case? And here again, it's hovering at around 200 days. Which is good, but it's also an area that we work on. I will say that the Board of Registered Nursing itself works very hard to identify appropriate settlement terms, oftentimes giving us those settlement terms up front as we receive a case in order to expeditiously provide a framework in which we can promptly settle cases. The next data point is accusations filed to default. In that case, this is a situation where the respondent fails to respond at all to an accusation that has been properly served upon them, and roughly how long it takes to get a default. And that metric is, I think, good, and always, of course, will bear improving. We're going to the penultimate slide here, to the accusations filed, the hearing requested. So in times past, we have had an obstacle in that the Office of Administrative Hearings that hears our case has been very, very busy. And in recent years, they have worked hard to increase their availability for our hearings to be scheduled. And we're hoping to see over time that this number will continue to decrease. The next figure is hearing date received to hearing commenced. This is the gap between the time when the Office of Administrative Hearing gives us their date until the date when the hearing actually commences. This shows you that it's maybe 5+ months from the time when we get our hearing date to the time when we go to hearing. I will tell you that when I joined the Department of Justice about 13 years ago, it could often take a year from the time when we got a hearing date to the time when the case was actually heard. That was because of, again, the lack of available hearing dates from our Office of Administrative Hearings, but they have worked very hard to provide us all the resources to reduce that time frame. So that is showing at the end that we've got from the accusation filed to the commencement of a hearing, we've got a period of roughly 288 days. That's good. Again, I don't think anyone is yet satisfied with that period of time. Now, let me summarize this, if I can, with our last slide, the conclusions that can be drawn from this. And this is not the only presentation of this sort that I give to our client agencies. And the main cautionary note is we believe that this 312.2 report is going to be increasingly valuable as time goes on, because as time goes on, we will be enabled to see trends and patterns in the data, and hopefully those trends and patterns will show that we're making improvement. The original goal of the Consumer Protection Enforcement Initiative, which created SB 467 in order to minimize the time of resolution of our cases. The original time period when that act was passed, I believe, was roughly 36 months. And we are working hard to bring it down into the target range of 18 months or less. And that goal is a challenging goal. One of the reasons it's challenging is apart from the fact that agencies vary between them as to their procedures and processes, there is a dynamic which goes through the process of providing appropriate mechanisms to ensure that licensees can avail themselves of all due process before their case is adjudicated, which means that in the course of every case, there's a period of discovery. There's a period in which parties can argue, almost always the other side, for continuances so that they can get more information. The process of providing due process, which every party is entitled to, is an impediment to speedy resolution, but it is an impediment that is necessary to ensure that justice is done on any given case in a manner that is protective of the public while being cognizant of the rights of our various licensees. Again, I compliment the Board of Registered Nursing's enforcement program. In my new position, I've got to know several of the senior people a little bit better, and I am very impressed with the attentiveness, the sophistication, and the energy which the board's enforcement program is implemented. It is really a pleasure for our office to work with the board's enforcement program, and we are very hopeful that as we gather more data points, that is each individual reporting period, and as we gather that data, I'm confident that we will see improvement in the timeframes that we report to the legislature, and we will see that in recognition of the due process rights, that we can more speedily improve the timeframes in which our cases will get adjudicated. So that concludes my presentation here today, and I'm welcome to take any questions to the extent that it pertains to this report that I've provided to you today. Thank you.
Hi, this is Imelda Seha-Butkowitz.
Yes.
I have a question. So we had a pilot project. We have a pilot project going here with the DOJ, correct? DOI?
Which pilot project are we talking about?
We're talking about, and I don't know if this is a reflection of this report or not. So, find my notes. Sorry, I need to find my notes. So we had a pilot project that started in 2017. We had a report in 2018 where we would prioritize the type of referrals. The 1 and 2 was referred to division investigation, and the categories 3 and 4 are investigated by the board bureau staff. Are you familiar with that pilot project?
Well, I haven't heard it referred to as a pilot project per se. There is the referral to the DOI, if that's what you're referring to, or to your own investigators, as opposed to the fast track program. I'm not sure if you're referring to that.
Okay, so we have a 12-month program to support the Board of Register mission to serve and protect the consumers. One of the concerns were, the length of time that it was taking to process this particular case. So it was to improve business process, case completion timeline, reducing overall the costs for the board. So, there were several factors that included, but not limited to, the enforcement division, low vacancy rate, and skill set of employees, the success of processing categories 3 and 4 investigations within the targeted time period, and the licensee population size. It started from September 15, 2019 through September 14, 2020. Obviously, we're not there. So these numbers that the report that you gave us, is that an overall, or this pertaining to this pilot project that we have in place?
No. And the reason for that is that this report that I've just given to you is information that goes through and including June 30 of 2019. So the pilot program that you're talking about is in this fiscal year, and I have not yet seen the data that is reflective of how that program is working, but that will be part of the collection process and will go into our report that will be published on January 1st, 2021. So one of the unfortunate things is the data gathering here takes time. It takes roughly 6 months from the time all the data starts being gathered, analyzed, validated, and processed to the preparation of the report, to the publication of the report. So we're actually looking back at this point about 1 year. So this data is up through basically 1 year ago. So any program that was initiated in the last 12 months won't be captured in this report.
Can we have a report just with this pilot project numbers? I would really like to see, how we're doing. It's a pilot project, so we need to really evaluate to see if we need to move forward or, do something else. I am really impressed with the ProLaw track that you use to track the cases and you store the data. I'm really interested in that, and, just I guess I would like to know a little bit more. Maybe this is something that the board can actually adopt. Again, I would like more information on that, a little bit deeper information, but we could have this conversation some other time. But I am really impressed. I thank you for the report. It's really helpful. It really is. And I like to just keep in touch to see, how well we're working. And it appears that you're working collaboratively with some of our board staff. And so that's really good news to know that we are working. And yeah, there's going to be glitches as we go on, but hopefully we can have those resolved. The end of this, it's for the public safety, and we just want these cases processed in a timely fashion. With that, these cases they're fast track. Is that what you said? They're fast track.
Well, there's another category of cases which are called fast track cases, and take a few minutes to describe that. But those are other cases that can be expeditiously resolved, oftentimes including cases that are not accusation cases. And so they may be petition cases, they may be other cases that are very simple that we tried to get resolved on a very efficient, time-sensitive basis so that we can get a throughput on those. Sometimes they can involve out-of-state discipline cases, other types of cases that can also be processed, accusation cases, more swiftly. And so that is one of the initiatives that has been underway for at least 3 or 4 years, I would think, whereby we have worked very collaboratively, as you indicated, with the board staff to find efficiencies, to identify cases that can be expeditiously resolved, where usually the respondent is not really contesting any of the allegations. And so those cases get segregated and put in a separate pool, and if they are suitable, they can be efficiently and very quickly resolved. And of course, the benefit of doing that and finding classes of cases is that by getting those cases adjudicated quickly, it brings down the total averages for the board, which is a very good thing, obviously.
Mr. San, this is Donna Gerber. Mr. Chairman, can I go ahead and ask a question?
Yes, please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for presenting this information to us, and so sorry that we can't see each other. It makes it very, very strange. But thank you for doing this for us, for the board. I just had a couple of questions. Can you talk at all about how the BRN, how our timelines compare to the other health boards based on this data?
I'd make two comments. One, I literally I'm not prepared to compare boards across boards. And I can tell you that the Board of Registered Nursing is one of the most efficient and effective and frankly well thought out designed enforcement programs. The problem though with comparing boards against boards is that the data for a lot of reasons can be wildly different for different reasons. And so it wouldn't be fair to any board to draw that comparison when their processes are different than each other. So I would hesitate to kind of look at it from even that perspective. Even if I had the data right in front of me for all the agencies, I would be hesitant to draw any conclusions from that data if I even gave it to you right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm concerned a little bit about the CPEI goal of 18 months. And I paid close attention to your comments about that. And I also noted that you remarked that there's about a 5-month gap between when a hearing date is set and when it actually happens.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to whether you think that the only possible way we could get to the 18 months goal is by trying to shorten that,
Well,
the gap.
yes, I understand. That is something that is already being done. So one reason why you see that 5.5-month gap is the Office of Administrative Hearings. I want to be very careful because I'm not trying to make any comment about it, but oftentimes they prefer not to schedule hearings more than 6 months out anyhow. So as soon as their calendar becomes available, our deputies start requesting hearing dates. And our deputies are working through, and our average deputy, I would say, or the typical deputy, I don't want to mistake data, but commonly our deputies may schedule up to one hearing a week, and their calendars will get full, for 5 or 6 months in advance, right now it works very well because as their calendar gets full, they then suddenly will have visibility to the Office of Administrative Hearings calendar, and they will calendar, the hearing the following week. So right now, the Office of Administrative Hearings has been doing actually an excellent job in providing availability to our office for hearing dates, far better than what it was in years past. And, I want to acknowledge that they have really worked very hard through the hiring of many new administrative law judges to provide us the ability to set those hearings. So I'm confident that you'll see some improvement. But the other aspect that I tried to speak to, albeit quickly, is there is a due process element so that when a licensee is brought into a disciplinary proceeding, they often will engage counsel, and you're dealing also then with the calendar, the scheduling issues, the discovery of relevant documents that the opposing attorney may have. And so there is always going to be a gap between the filing of the accusation, even and sometimes the setting of the hearing, to the actual hearing date, in order to allow the opposing side to develop an understanding of the case and to develop evidence which they will intend to use to potentially either defend the case at hearing or to use it as information that the board might find helpful in evaluating the settlement possibility of a given case. So I can tell you that improvements are being made, and we've seen that over the last several years. And there's always going to be improvement, I think. But there also is this tension that once the proceeding becomes adversarial, there is a built-in process to allow the other side to get up to speed on the case, to identify potential witnesses, to develop evidence, and to respond to the allegations. The board has, one of the initiatives that the board has done is it will, I don't know the percentage, but a very substantial percentage of the cases our office gets, the board will very quickly identify settlement terms that we can use. And with experienced opposing counsel who do our type of cases, they can often engage in a very early and meaningful settlement discussion with the aim of avoiding hearing and getting the case resolved. So you have to look at this as a set of a lot of moving parts, and each of the moving parts has a certain tension against the other moving parts. But we're trying to push on all the moving parts in order to compress these timeframes. And based on some information that I wouldn't go into, I believe that there's reason to believe optimistic that we will see and continue to see improvement. But those are, a lot of different initiatives that take place both in our office, in our client agency's office, in the Office of Administrative Hearings, and sometimes even in the adoption of new regulations by the Office of Administrative Hearings, all of which are aimed to enhance the resolution of cases and the early resolution of cases. So well, I'm not going to go into any great detail, but the Office of Administrative Hearings has worked very hard during this period of the COVID-19 crisis to find means to get cases resolved. It's been a struggle, and I'm sure that will be an issue that we will speak to next year. But everyone is working hard to work on their particular component to make all this work more efficiently and more effectively, ultimately for the benefit of consumer protection.
Great. Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate the information.
This is Betty. Mr. President, I'd like to ask a question, please.
Please go ahead with your question.
I'm wondering if there's any triage method that you use. One of the things that we're concerned about as board members are nurses who have had issues, patient care issues. Patient may have been injured, patient may have been killed, patient in some way. We're looking to see that these cases are moved quickly. And sometimes we feel that they're not, because we'll get cases that are pretty significant issues and we don't see them for 2 or 3 years after the fact. So do you have a way of triaging these cases so that these nurses, the case involved is looked at quickly before other cases?
Well, all of the cases are looked at as they come in initially by the supervisors that are located in all the various cities. And oftentimes the board staff will look at a case and they will tell us that this case has some heightened concerns. In those cases, there is a procedure that we are enabled to which we can follow. It's called an interim suspension order process under Business and Professions Code 494 and companion statutes that allows for cases to be expeditiously heard. Those cases are bring with them their own challenges because our evidence really has to be pretty ironclad in order to get that type of interim relief to suspend the license of, let's say, a nurse that's been engaged in gross negligence that may have harmed a patient. Then those cases do get segregated and attention is paid to them very quickly. Other cases involving, might be criminal conduct that occurs that we proceed to file a charging document based on criminal conduct that may actually involve patient care. And those cases are treated expeditiously. So this is a process of interacting with the board staff. And I would obviously feel regretful if there's a perception that cases involving the circumstances that you mentioned took as long as you indicated. And there are always going to be outliers, and usually there are facts and circumstances that may not be apparent from the case that impacted the final resolution of a matter. So I can't speak to a specific case, but I do tell you that I know the board staff, have spoken to many of them over the years. They're highly attentive to cases where there is a threat of harm. And we take those cases and they do get extra attention and prioritization. So that may not be a sufficient answer for you, but I can tell you that those cases are triaged and identified. But whether a case that might seem that way 2 years later when it goes to hearing based on all the evidence that may have been uncovered since the case was filed, it may have been a different picture at the time when the case began. Sometimes there are even additional allegations that arise after the case is filed, which results in an amended accusation that I'm sure you've seen. And it may not be plain to you that some of those new allegations came in after the case was filed, which caused the case to be amended. And so it may have actually been expeditiously heard from the time of those amended allegations, even if the original accusation was filed much earlier.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Are there any other questions from the board members? Are there any public comments related to his presentation right now, BRN moderator?
I have activated the Q&A feature. Please submit a comment. I would like to make a comment. Board President, there are no comments.
Thank you very much, BRN moderator. And thank you from the Attorney General's office for the presentation. We look forward to working with you further in the future.
Same from me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At
Thank
this
you,
time,
Mr.
we're going to
Slavy.
move along to item 8.0, and that's report of the administrative committee. And this is discussion and possible action regarding revision of the August through December board meetings as to dates and locations or cancellations resulting from the declared state of an emergency.
Mr. President, this is Donna.
Yes, please.
So, to the board, this will be my last act as part of the administrative committee. You may recall that a few months ago, once we started going on remote meetings and all the changes that went with that, the administrative committee, asked the full board to give the committee authority to determine on a month-by-month basis when to schedule meetings, both in terms of on the calendar and the length of the meeting, whether or not we needed to add meetings to our normal schedule that had been approved by the board last year. And we've been doing that. And as you've seen, the end result is that, in fact, we've scheduled additional meetings beyond our normal schedule in order to try to deal with important items. So what we're doing here is really asking you to extend that authorization to the administrative committee. It will actually not be me. It will be President Jackson and Vice President Marlborough going forward, because we presume that we will probably be continuing in this mode, given the whole situation with COVID-19. So that's the request, and I would simply put on the floor a motion to give the administrative committee the authority to determine between August 2020 and December 2020 the dates, locations, or cancellations of any meetings of the board during the declared state of emergency.
I second your motion, Donna.
President Jackson, I just had a quick question. Are we kind of going to follow the state mandate for reopening as to when we would start going back to regular meetings? Is that the goal here?
Absolutely.
Okay,
All
great.
the governor's instructions.
All right. And Donna may have said that. I'm sorry, I may have missed it.
Are there any public comments? BRN moderator?
I've activated the Q&A feature. Please state, I would like to make a comment. Board President, there are no public comments.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call for the vote at this time. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber,
Gerber, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz,
Yes.
Elizabeth Woods,
Woods, yes.
Dolores Trujillo,
Trujillo,
Karen
yes.
Skelton, is Karen Skelton back? Kenneth Marbrough,
Yes.
we'll go back again to Karen Skelton. I see her name displayed, but you're not responding. But the motion carries. Thank you very much. Can we move along to next item on the agenda? Next item on the agenda is item 9.0, report of the Education Licensing Committee. I'll be chairing this committee. And at this time, we'll turn it over to our board liaison, who is the liaison for the Education Licensing Committee for the board.
Hello? Hello?
Yes,
I'm sorry, this is Karen. I was stuck on mute.
it's okay.
Too late?
It's okay. We had a quorum to pass the
Okay.
motion.
Sorry, my
We're at item 9.0 right now.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Board President, I don't show anybody to speak.
Mary Ann McCarthy, she's in the attendee list. Can you elevate her to panelist, please?
I'm sorry, Marianne, you are unmuted.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, BRN moderator. Mary Ann McCarthy, Nursing Education Consultant and Liaison to the Education and Licensing Committee. Let's start with agenda item 9.1, discussion and possible action regarding Education and Licensing Committee recommendation to ratify minor curriculum revisions and acknowledge receipt of program progress reports. According to board policy, nursing education consultants may approve minor curriculum changes that do not significantly alter philosophy, objectives, or content. Approvals must be reported to the Education Licensing Committee and to the board. Minor curriculum revisions include the following categories: curriculum changes, work study programs, preceptor programs, public health nurse certificate programs, and progress reports that are not related to continuing approval. The following programs have submitted minor curriculum revisions and progress reports that have been approved by their NECs. The bold designates schools who also have a regular minor curriculum revision. However, all others are temporary revisions due to COVID-19. These are consent agenda items.
I make a motion that we accept item 9.1, but I will abstain from or recuse myself from Mira Costa College, and Southwestern Community College.
This is Donna. I'll second the motion.
Are there any comments from the board? Are there any public comments? BRN moderator.
I've activated the Q&A. Board President Judy Corliss would like to make a comment.
Morning. Hello? Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Judy. I'm
Hello?
sorry.
Hi. A lot of it's cutting in and out. I only heard half of what Donna Gerber said and half of what Michael Jackson said. So I don't know if that's on your end. My computer doesn't seem to be having a problem, but I missed half of several of the speakers, and I was trying to send you a note, but I couldn't get a note through. And you could see where I tried 3-4 times, but you never acknowledged my comment. So I don't know if there's a problem on that end. Do you know? Or if anybody else is having one? Hello?
This is the BRN.
This is Reza, Board Counsel. I'm able to hear everybody just fine.
Okay. Then maybe it's on my end. Sorry, but it was just I couldn't hear everybody. Thank you so much. Okay.
BRN moderator, are there any more public comments?
Sorry, sir. I'm looking. BRN President, there are no more public comments.
At this time, I'd like to call for the vote. Michael Jackson votes yes, with the exception from me recusing myself from Southwestern College and Mira Costa. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz?
Yes.
Elizabeth Woods?
Woods, yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Karen Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
And Kenneth Marbrough.
Malbrough, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Agenda item 9.2, discussion and possible action regarding Education Licensing Committee recommendations. 9.2.1, recommend ratification of applications or other action regarding pre-licensure program continuing approval. The BRN staff have conducted a regularly scheduled continuing approval visit for the schools listed. This process begins with the self-study written by the nursing program and analyzed by the assigned nursing education consultant. This is followed by a 2 to 3 day site visit, including visits to clinical sites, verifying resources, and meetings with students, faculty, and administrators. The following programs have met all board rules and regulations for continuation of approval of pre-licensure nursing programs and are consent agenda items. National University Baccalaureate Degree Nursing Program, Contra Costa College Associate Degree Nursing Program, and Modesto College, or Modesto Junior College Associate Degree Nursing Program.
Ms. Michael Jackson, I make a motion that we accept item 9.2.
It's Ken Marbrough, I second that.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing no discussion from the board, public comment, BRN moderator.
Public comment is open. Please state you would like to make a comment. Board President, there are no public comments.
Thank you very much. Seeing no public comments, I call for the vote. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz?
Yes.
Elizabeth Woods?
Woods, yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Karen Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
Kenneth Marlborough.
Marlboro, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 9.2.2, recommend approval or other action regarding pre-licensure program, unit adjustment, or other changes for pre-licensure nursing programs. The BRN staff have evaluated the major curriculum revision requests below. The following programs have met all board rules and regulations for a major curriculum revision without an enrollment increase for a pre-licensure nursing program. These are consent agenda items. East Los Angeles College Associate Degree Nursing Program and Hartnell College Associate Degree Nursing Program.
Item 9.2.2, Michael Jackson. I make a motion that we accept.
Ken Marlboro, second.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing no discussion from the board, public comment?
Public comment has been opened. Please remember 2 minutes. Board President, there are no public comments.
Seeing no public comment, Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Imelda Seja Buckowitz?
Yes.
Elizabeth Woods?
Woods, yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Karen Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
Kenneth Marlborough.
Marlboro, yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 9.3, discussion and possible action regarding whether to accept the recommendation to accept the program progress report. Discussion and possible action to address any performance gaps, including actions described in 16 CCR 1423.2A for East Los Angeles College Associate Degree Nursing Program. I am the nursing education consultant for East Los Angeles College, and I will be presenting this program. Joining me on the line is Dr. Armida Arnales, who is the Vice President of the college, and Ms. Lurleen Gaines, who is the Program Director. At the November 2019 board meeting, ELAC was put on warning status with the intent to close. They are on monthly reports to the ELC and the board. Reports for this meeting were submitted from the nursing program, college administration, and workforce development. These reports are included in your packet. Significant updates since materials were submitted include the new curriculum that was just on the agenda a moment ago is a new curriculum which is now approved and will begin for all cohorts of ELAC students starting in the fall of 2020. The interim college president ends his term this month, and a new interim president will follow. The current program director will retire from the college on June 30th of 2020. An internal candidate who meets BRN regulation for a program director has requested to be considered. And per LACCD contract, this faculty member will take the program director role starting July 1st, 2020. Plans for progression and graduation of current ELAC students has been very positive in the last month. With the extension of the DCA's clinical hours waiver, all current students have been able to progress and or graduate. With this success, I am supporting now a new cohort in the fall of 2020. Med-Surg and Psych Mental Health faculty have been BRN approved to hire for the fall of 2020. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much for your report, Mary Ann. Would the school like to make any comments at this time? And at this time, I'd like to congratulate Director Lurleen Gaines on her many years of service to nursing and to this program. We'd like to thank her very much.
I'm not sure, Mr. Jackson. You might want to have the moderator open their lines so they could speak if they wish.
Ms. Gaines, your microphone's unmuted. Ms. Ornelas, your microphone's unmuted.
This is Lorraine Gaines. I'd like to first of all thank the board for having the confidence to give us the opportunity to clean up our act. And a special thank you to Dr. McCarthy for being there and being so supportive and guiding us through this process. We appreciate the extension of time and giving us the ability to move forward, and we're moving forward in a very positive direction. And I hopeful and assured that the program will continue in good standing as we move along. And thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to be a nurse in the state of California.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ornelas, I believe that's you.
I'm making this. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am. You're echoing. Turn your speakers off.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Ms. Ornelas, you're still echoing.
Is that any better?
Perfect.
Okay. I just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize and thank Ms. Gaines for all of her work and commitment to our program, our college, our community. Really shown a lot of leadership and grace throughout her tenure at the college, and she's going to be missed, and we really thank her for all of her efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report for the Education Licensing Committee.
Mary Ann McCarthy, thank you very much. At this time, I would make a recommendation that we accept the report and also allow a cohort of students. And how many students were you talking about?
They admit 30 students.
And that would be in the fall.
Lurleen, please chime in. Is it 30 students twice a year, I believe, but let's make sure that I confirm with Ms. Gaines.
If I'm unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Yes, it's 30 twice a school year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I make a recommendation that we accept the report and allow them to admit their cohort of students, 30 students. Do I have a second?
This is Woods, I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this
Sorry,
time,
who's second?
Woods.
Woods.
Woods, thank you.
Are there any public comments?
Oops. Public comment has been open. Board President, there are no public comments.
Seeing no public comments, I call for the vote at this time. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Elizabeth Woods?
Woods, yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Imelda Seja-Buckowitz?
Yes.
Karen Skelton?
Yes.
And Kenneth Marlborough?
Marlboro, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary Ann.
You're welcome.
And at this time, we'll move on to item 9.4, licensing program update.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, this is Macaulay Fuzarens, and I'm the chief of the licensing division, and I'll be presenting the licensing program update, item 9.4. Remote work. Licensing staff continue to telework for up to 4 days a week. Staff have a routine of coming into the office to work and drop off and pick up work for the upcoming week. Licensing staff have fully transitioned for Skype for Business to Microsoft Teams. The management and supervisory team hold weekly team meetings with their staff via video conferencing and conference calls. Team channels have been created for staff, and they use these channels to check in and check out on their work environment daily. They report any technical issues that they're experiencing with the virtual desktop, and they're able to communicate with each other on their day-to-day work functions. Staff are using the virtual desktop to access DCA's IT systems, which includes Breeze. Part of DCA's infrastructure is aging, and there is a need to move to a new, more updated system. This platform is called Breeze for OpenShift, and this platform allows for more flexibility with applications on the cloud, and it's easier for DCA to maintain and manage. With any technology issues or any technology updates, there have been some delays in connectivity, but staff are managing well, and DCA has been working to resolve the issues. Application processing. Licensing evaluators are currently processing the initial review of California and U.S. exam and endorsement applications that have been received in late April, international exam and endorse applications that have been received in early May, outgoing verifications received in late April, and inactive to active and back to active requests received in June. Implementation of AB 2138. Licensing submitted the necessary changes to implement AB 2138. A request to remove the conviction question and information was submitted to the Breeze team in January 2020, and staff completed the testing for these changes in Breeze last week. Additionally, all applications that are posted on the board's website have been updated to comply with the new legislation. The newly updated application and these instructions will be posted on the board's website on July 1st, 2020, the implementation date. Statistics. The board continues to use Cuber and can create and run various reports upon request. These reports are used to find areas of improvement in processes as well as to better predict workflow fluctuations. The first table in your materials provides a comparison of the average processing time for exam and endorsement applications for the past 3 fiscal years and current fiscal year to date. For the current fiscal year, for the exam applications, which are from receipt of an application to the approval of the applicant to take the exam, it is an average of 36.8 days. And for endorsement applications, from the receipt of an application to licensure, is an average of 25.4 days. The licensing applications received table provides the total number of applications the board has received by fiscal year. As you can see, for fiscal year 2019 to 2020, it's through May, and we have received 14,522 exam applications, 15,057 endorsement applications, 5,200 repeat and reapply, 8,167 advanced practice applications, for a total of 42,946 total applications through May. The additional request received table provides the total number of outgoing verifications and inactive to active requests the board has received by fiscal year. There have been corrections made to this table since the last board meeting, as it was discovered that the report that we pulled the verification request was inaccurate. The updated information has been verified using several reports, including the board's revenue report, and this new report will be used for all future statistics. So for current fiscal year through May, we have received a total of 14,853 out-of-state verifications, a total of 2,224 inactive to active requests, for a total of 17,077. For the staffing updates, the licensing program currently has 5 vacancies, and we're in the various processes of the recruitment process. And our next steps are to continue with the monitoring of the business processes, improving our timeframes, and continuing to hire staff. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions from the board members? Are there any public comments related to this?
Public comments have been enabled. Board President, there are no public comments.
Seeing no public comments, we thank you for your presentation, Macaulay, at this time.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
At this time, we'll move on to item 10.0, report of the legislative committee. We'll turn it over to the chairperson of that committee, Chairperson Donna Gerber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board moderator, can you make sure that Thelma Harris is able to present this to the board?
Ms. Harris, your microphone is unmuted.
Good afternoon. Thelma Harris, Chief of Legislation.
Hi there, Thelma. Why don't you go ahead?
Yes. In your packet, you have an updated calendar for the legislative session that is continuing. Right now, where the legislative session is, the Assembly has actually gone into recess and for the summer, and the Senate will be going into recess at the end of this month. The summer recess will reconvene after June, I think it's July 13th. So the calendar that you have in your packet is specific for what will be going forward next. What I have to present to you today are the bills that are in your packet that refer to a status update. And I'm going to focus on the bills that are in bold. So we will start with Assembly Bill 890. The author is Wood, and the subject of this bill is around the nurse practitioner's scope of practice. The last position that the board took was on. Hello? Hello? Can you hear
Hello,
me?
go ahead.
I can hear you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the last position that was taken was to oppose unless amended, and that is the position that has been held. And the opposition to this bill was specifically around the language that is specifying that there would be a separate board for the nurse practitioners. There has not been any movement as far as making any changes to that amendment. And this bill has now been referred to the Committee on Business and Professions in the Senate. So we're waiting for it to be scheduled. Are there any questions?
Okay. No questions. And I'll, Thelma, since we can't see each other, I will say something if I want to suggest that the board change their position on any of these updates. So if I don't say anything, it means I don't.
Thank you. All right. So the next bill that is in bold on your status update is Assembly Bill 2028. And this bill is around the state agencies meeting. We did send in a letter to oppose unless amended. However, this bill now has been changed to the fact that the amendments are within what the board would be able to comply to. So 2028 is now going to the Committee It's in Senate rules and it's been assigned to a committee.
Okay, so this is Donna. On this particular one, I am going to recommend that we change our position to support as amended, because now the bill is consistent with what we need from the board's perspective. So this is the good news.
All right.
Was
So let me.
that your motion, Donna?
Correct.
I'll second it.
So it's been moved and seconded to change the position on that bill. Let's see if there's any public comment, Mr. Moderator.
Public comment has been opened. Chairperson Gerber, Saskia Kim would like to make a comment.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Saskia Kim with the California Nurses Association.
I can't hear you.
Ms. Kim, are you there?
Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. Switching between phone and computer. Thank you, Saskia Kim with California Nurses Association. We're the sponsors of this bill. And thank you for the opportunity to comment. I just wanted to quickly mention that we appreciate that the board's website actually currently reflects the changes that it made to its most recent meeting materials, which is actually a requirement of the bill. And as Ms. Harris mentioned, this bill has been amended to require the posting of meeting materials at least 48 hours prior to a meeting rather than the previous 10 days. And so with that change, CNA respectfully requests the board remove its opposition to the bill, and we appreciate the support position. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, doesn't look like we have any other public comment, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more board discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion. Donna Gerber, yes. Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Ken Marlborough?
Marlboro, yes.
Karen Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Imelda Sebakowitz?
Nelda, yes.
Betty Woods?
Woods, yes.
Okay, I did that totally by memory. Did I miss anybody? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes. Go ahead, Thelma. Thank you.
All right. So our next bill is Assembly Bill 2185. And this bill is around professions and vocations, the applicant's license in other states, specifically around reciprocity. What the last position was to support as amended. And this bill did actually make a decision to exempt the board because of the work that CNA did help in educating the legislators and the staff, that showing that and reflecting how the Board of Registered Nursing is actually a good example of how to process licenses in other states. At this time, this bill is in the Assembly B&B, Business and Professions Committee.
Okay, so move on to the next bill.
All right, so Assembly Bill 2288. This is Assemblymember Lowe, and this bill is in reference to the nursing programs and the clinical hours. The position that was taken was support with amendments. And this bill at this time has been assigned to the Committee on Business and Professions and Education in the Senate.
Okay, I think that our position should continue on that bill unless board members have any desire to change it. Hearing none, let's move on to the next one.
The next bill would be Assembly Bill 2549, and the author of this bill is Assembly Member Salas. This bill is specific around the Department of Consumer Affairs and temporary licenses. The position that was taken is to watch. This bill right now is in Senate rules waiting to be assigned to a committee.
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
So the next bill is Assembly Bill 3016. The author is Assembly Member Dolly. And this bill is specific around the Board of Registered Nursing online license verification, better known as the utilizing nurses for license verification. The last position that was taken is to oppose. At this time, this bill is in Senate rules waiting to be assigned to committee.
Okay, I have no suggestion for changing that position. We have extensive letters and documentation outlining why the board is opposed to it and the suggestions that the board has made to decrease the amount of issue around verifications. So unless board members want to change our position, I would suggest we move to the next bill.
All right, hearing none, we will go to the Senate bills in your status update. So that the first bill will be Senate Bill 1053. The author is Senator Morlack. And this bill is around the licensed registered nurses and licensed vocational nurses for the Nurse Licensure Compact. The position that was taken is to oppose, and this bill did fail in the Senate B&P. So at this time, this bill does not have any movement.
Okay, thank you. Move to the next one.
The last bill to present to you today is Senate Bill 1237. The author of the bill is Senator Dodd, and this bill is for the nurse midwife scope of practice. The position that was taken is to support if amended. And at this point, this bill is now, it just moved off of the Senate floor, so it is going to Senate, it's going to Assembly rules to go to a committee within the Assembly. So it will be going to the Assembly Business and Professions and Assembly Appropriations next.
And board members, the issue here, again, is largely around a portion of the bill that would change the makeup of the nurse midwifery committee within the board. It would change it from the current arrangement, which is to have one physician on the committee, and it would increase that to 4 physicians. It would also suggest that the midwifery committee of the board somehow get involved in discipline cases, specific individual licensees. So we have a problem with both of those elements of this legislation. And we have reported that to the.
So why is there support there for it? It says support.
Well, we support only if it's amended.
Doesn't it have to be stated like that? Support if amended or oppose unless amended?
It can be those. You could choose either one of those mechanisms. The reason we chose support if amended is because the main thrust of the bill we do support on behalf of the nurse midwives. We just need for them to change some of these secondary parts of their bill.
Well, I know that, and that's the same issue with the nurse practitioners. But then I don't think we should leave it as support. I think we should have it support if amended or oppose unless amended. I'm just uncomfortable having that support there.
I can change that verbiage to put support if amended or as amended.
As amended.
Well, we're waiting for it to be amended. It hasn't been amended yet.
That's true.
So Betty, is support if amended what you want?
That's support if amended or oppose unless amended. I don't care how it is, but I don't think we should lend some complete support to it, and that's what it looks like we're doing. So.
Okay, the position that I understood we had was support if amended.
I'm just looking at the information that was given us here, and it looks like it just says support 3/12/20.
It just says support. So that's incorrect. Thank you.
Betty.
Okay.
So with that correction, because that's not the position that we took at the last, so that is a typo. So with that correction, our position on the bill would remain the same.
Support with amendments.
If amended, support if amended. Mm-hmm. And just so you know, we're definitely indicating what amendments we want.
Yes.
In our letter. And maybe Thelma, it might be a good idea, since Betty is chair of the Nursing Practice Committee, to make sure that she gets a copy of the BRN letter.
All right, I will make sure I send that out. Would you like that to go just to Betty or to everyone else on the board?
Well, if let's ask that question, because actually board members, if they would like, they could be copied on all of the letters that go out with our position.
So Ken Marlborough, I would like that. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just make it a policy of the committee and make sure that all board members receive copies of the letters of the BRN position on various legislation.
Thank you.
Great.
And that's blind copied in an email, to make sure we're not having any serial communication. And
correct. Definitely. So each of you will get your own copy, but you won't see others on the board.
The point of that, this is Reza, is that those of you who received the report don't reply all and make comments to all the board members, such that you're having a conversation outside of a board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's trying to be avoided.
Okay, so noted.
Okay, I think that concludes the report of the Legislative Committee, correct, Thelma?
That is correct. That is the end of my report. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mr. Chairman.
thank you very much for your report. Thank you very much for your report. At this time, we'll move along to item 11.0, and this is report of the Intervention Discipline Committee. We'll turn it over to the chairperson, Imelda Seja-Buckowitz.
Good afternoon. This is Imelda Seja-Buckowitz, and moving along to 11.1, this is for information only. I'm not sure who's going to report on this.
Good afternoon, Stacy Berman, Enforcement Chief. Agenda item 11.1, information only, complaint intake, intervention, citation, and legal desk. Complaint intake unit update. The complaint intake units implemented teleworking agreements for their staff beginning in late March. The transition to telework had some challenges, but staff has responded extremely well. Since telework was initiated, all incoming complaints are being processed on average within 2 days of receipt by the BRN. The complaint intake unit managers, Sonia Wilson and Jessica Perry, have been working closely with the discipline, intervention, and licensing units from the beginning of the COVID-19 telework transition. Together and with the help of their teams, they have developed new procedures for communicating issues and moving workload electronically between enforcement and licensing divisions. The new procedures are proving to be effective. Complaint intake now transmits nearly all workload electronically to the intervention and discipline units. Prior to COVID-19, the fiscal year 2020 enforcement complaint workload was trending higher than fiscal year 2019. After California's COVID-19 began, the volume of complaints has decreased sharply. The following chart highlights the change in April and May combined monthly complaint volumes from 2019 versus 2020. As you can see, there was a 34.4% overall decrease in the number of complaints received by the Board of Registered Nursing in this time period. With 4 key staff vacancies in the complaint intake unit, the lower complaint volume has been a major factor in the unit remaining current on incoming complaints during the COVID crisis. The complaint intake unit is performing the initial processing of incoming complaints within 2 days. High priority cases to the Division of Investigation are being referred within 4 days, and lower priority cases to BRN Investigation Unit are being referred within 6 days. AB 2138 update. Unit managers Jessica Perry and Sonia Wilson are leading BRN's preparations for the implementation of AB 2138. Passed in September 2018, AB 2138 changes how BRN evaluates applicants for licensure with prior criminal convictions and prior professional license discipline. These changes will go into effect on July 1, 2020. Although the law will significantly change the internal enforcement procedures for applicants, most applicants for licensure will not be affected by these changes in law. For any future applicant for licensure with a prior criminal conviction as of July 1, changes to the process includes but is not limited to the following. The application for licensure will no longer ask the applicant if they have a prior criminal conviction. The BRN will rely on fingerprint results from the California Department of Justice and FBI. BRN shall not consider criminal convictions which occurred more than 7 years from the date of application. The 7-year limitation does not apply to serious felonies as defined in the law. BRN shall not consider any criminal conviction that has been dismissed or expunged pursuant to sections 1203.4, 1203.4A, 1203.41, or 1203.42 of the Penal Code, or a comparable dismissal or expungement. An applicant who has a conviction that has been dismissed pursuant to section 1203.4, 1203.4A, 1203.41, or 1203.42 of the Penal Code shall provide proof of the dismissal if it is not reflected on the fingerprint report furnished by the Department of Justice. The BRN asks the applicant to disclose any information or documentation regarding the applicant's criminal history. The board may request mitigating information from an applicant regarding the applicant's criminal history, provided the applicant is informed that disclosure is voluntary and that the applicant's decision to not disclose any information shall not be a factor in a board's decision to grant or deny an application for licensure. Beginning July 1, applicants will no longer be required to send the board documentation regarding their past convictions. For all convictions falling within the AB 2138 timeframes, the BRN Enforcement Division will conduct investigations to obtain law enforcement and court records prior to making application decisions. BRN anticipates this new process to take several weeks. However, the BRN will accept certified arrest and court records submitted by the applicant. On May 1, the Enforcement Division presented and recorded an updated applicant enforcement webinar. The target audience for the webinar is all applicants for licensure in California with a history of criminal conviction or discipline against another professional license. The presentation highlights changes in the law as a result of AB 2138. The webinar has been posted to the BRN website. Complaint Intake Unit Staffing. The unit has 1 AGPA, 1 SSA, and 2 OT vacancies. Complaint intake is actively recruiting for these vacancies. One OT should be filled in June, and the remaining positions should be filled by July. Are there any questions on the complaint intake report? If not, I can move on.
Thank you.
Intervention citation and legal support update. Lorraine Clark, unit manager, in coordination with managers from the complaint intake, probation, and discipline units, has implemented a wide variety of new procedures to move and process workload electronically. Since BRN began teleworking, the intervention citation and legal support unit has updated procedures to make the following processes fully electronic. Intervention referral process is now completely electronic, including receiving, reviewing, and communicating the outcome of program referrals to enforcement. This has resulted in reduction of paper and eliminating the use of physical file folders. Citations are now receiving many referrals electronically, which has allowed staff to review citations in the telework environment. Board decisions and stipulated agreements are now signed and submitted electronically, which allows legal support staff to process adopted decisions in a telework environment. Adopted decisions are then submitted for service by in-office staff. The intervention citation and legal support staff has one OT vacancy at this time. There are currently 4 physician member vacancies on the intervention evaluation committees. Physician on IEC 2 in the Bay Area, a physician on IEC 3 in Los Angeles, a physician on IEC 5 in Fresno, a physician on IEC 7 in San Jose, and there are 2 nurse member vacancies, one in IEC 5 Fresno and one in IEC 6 Palm Springs. But we have recommendations in the next agenda item to fill these vacancies for the nurses. Outreach. The BRN Intervention Program would like to thank Virginia Matthews, Maximus Recovery Program Manager, for her February presentation, Substance Use Disorders in the Health Professions, at the Sacramento Sierra Nurse Leaders Meeting on February 26th. Lorraine Clark, Intervention Unit Manager, and Joe Pacheco, meeting at UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento. The audience included approximately 60 Sacramento region nurse leaders. The information is well received with an informative Q&A afterward. On February 7th, Shannon Johnson and Joe Pacheco gave a BRN enforcement presentation at Sierra Nevada Hospital in Grass Valley to an audience of RN. And that concludes my report for item 11.1. Are there any questions?
Board members, do you have no questions? Moderator, can we open it up for comments? Public comments?
Public comment is open. Chairperson Bekowitz, there are no comments.
Thank you. Stacy, moving along to 11.1.1. Is that you, Stacy, again? Thank you.
Yes, I'll be handling all the agenda items.
Thank you.
Sure. 11.1.1, discussion and possible action regarding reappointment of Intervention Evaluation Committee members. In accordance with Business and Professions Code Section 2770.2, Board of Registered Nursing is responsible for appointing persons to serve on an Intervention Evaluation Committee. Each IEC is composed of 3 registered nurses, 1 physician, and 1 public member who possess knowledge and expertise in substance use disorder or mental health. There is a lengthy list of appointments and reappointments. Below are the names of the candidates being considered for appointment or reappointment to their respective IEC. Their applications and curriculum vitae were provided to the board for consideration. If approved, their terms will expire as noted below. The EIC voted to recommend approval to the board at the May meeting. If you would like, Imelda, we can take one motion and I can just list all of the members.
Yes, I would make that motion to appoint and reappoint.
I second that. This is Michael Jackson.
Thank you. Any board member comments? Do we need to open it up to the public for comments?
Public comments are open. Board Member Budkowitz, there are no public comments.
Thank you. Okay, I call for the question, starting with myself. Imelda Seja Budkowitz, yes. Michael Jackson,
Michael Jackson votes yes.
Donna Gerber,
Gerber, yes.
Kent Marlborough,
Marlboro, yes.
Eddie Woods,
Woods, yes.
Dolores Trujillo,
Trujillo, yes.
Karen,
Karen, yes.
thank you. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving along to item 11.2.
Agenda item 11.2, information only, investigations update. COVID-19 changes for the BRN investigation staff include use of Microsoft Teams for interviews in place of most in-person interviews. Facilities have had some delays in providing records due to COVID, but are working and communicating with investigators. BRN investigative staff are beginning to conduct field visits again as appropriate and following all recommendations from the CDC and CDPH to ensure staff remain safe. Complaint intake support staff are assisting with work done in the office due to a support staff member being on an extended leave. Current timeframes for DOI investigations average 373 days to closure, with 125 cases over 1 year and 48 closures for May 2020. Case closures for BRN for May 2020 were 52, completed in an average of 214 days, with 12 cases over 1 year. Staffing update. The Central California unit completed the interview process for a special investigator position due to the impending retirement at the end of June 2020 of a Bay Area investigator. Interviews were held May 18th and 19th, 2020, and the candidate will start July 1, 2020. BRN also hired retired annuitant Lupe Caceres, who was with the BRN prior in a similar role. The investigations unit will have staff on medical leave through the end of the year, beginning July 2020, and with several new investigative staff, temporary help is needed. Lupe started June 1, 2020. BRN DOI Case Prioritization Pilot Project. BRN and DCA's Division of Investigation continue to follow the one-year pilot program initiated in September 2019 that changed case referral guidelines for urgent priority quality of care complaints alleging significant patient harm and/or patient death. Since February, approximately 63 cases that meet the new case referral guidelines have been assigned to BRN investigations. To date, 9 have been completed. The pilot program includes case tracking accountability measures so that BRN and DCA can closely monitor this critical caseload. David Chris, Division of Investigation Chief, is scheduled to provide a presentation at the August 2020 Enforcement Intervention Committee meeting. Summary investigation statistics. As of May 27, 2020, the BRN investigation staff have been assigned approximately 67% of all formal investigation case referrals, while DOI are referred 33%. As of June 15, 2020, BRN has 18, and as of May 31, 2020, DOI has 125 open investigation cases over 1 year old. That concludes my report for 11.2. Are there any questions?
Moderator, could you please open it for public comment?
Public comment is open. Board Member Seja Budkowitz, there are no public comments.
Okay, Stacy, moving along to 11.3, please.
Agenda item 11.3, information only, discipline and probation update. Probation unit. Currently, the probation unit is teleworking successfully and only returning to the office once a week to take care of any administrative items that cannot be done at home. The unit has 1 AGPA vacancy. We have completed the first round of interviews and will be conducting additional interviews soon. We hope to have this position filled soon. Fiscal year to date, 202 RNs completed probation successfully by either early termination or completing their full term. 68 RNs were unsuccessful in completing their term, resulting in 25 revocations and 43 surrenders. 1 program monitor was identified for possible redirection to a contact tracing position in support of the governor's contact tracing initiative. If selected, the caseload will be distributed amongst all other monitors during this redirection. There are currently 68 probation cases pending at the AG's office. Of the 68, only 12 cases are over 1 year and none are over 2 years. Some hearings are being held electronically or via a web platform. This is dependent on the Office of Administrative Hearings office. If these options aren't available, we are continuing the hearing until safe to hold the hearing in person. Discipline unit. We currently have 1 temporary vacancy due to an employee on extended leave. Currently, the discipline unit is teleworking successfully and only returning to the office once a week to take care of any administrative items that can't be done at home. We continue to focus our efforts on aging cases, striving to meet the CPEI guideline of 540 days. Approximately half of our cases are completed within this timeframe. Our current fiscal year overall average is 610 days, which is only 70 days shy of our goal. In the last month, we, in working with the Attorney General's office, have been able to decrease the time from pleading file to stipulated agreement by over 60 days. The AG's office has also decreased their overall aging cases by 60 days in the last 6 months. Currently, the discipline unit has only 8 cases over 2 years old and 94 that are 1 to 2 years old, which is approximately 15% of our overall pending discipline cases. At this time last year, we had 38 over 2 years old and 126 that were 1 to 2 years old. Discipline staff have been actively working with the AG's office in preparation for the change to Business and Professions Code Section 480, which takes effect on July 1, 2020. 1 discipline analyst was redirected to a contact tracing position in support of the governor's contact tracing initiative. The caseload will be distributed amongst all other analysts during this redirection. Discipline staff have completed updating the discipline procedure manual and unit overview presentations. That concludes my report for item 11.3. Are there any questions?
Moderator, please open it for public comments. Thank you.
Public comments are open. Board members say Habakowitz. There are no public comments.
Okay, Stacy, please continue with item 11.4. Thank you.
Agenda item 11.4, information only, enforcement and intervention statistics. Attached, you will find data representing the entire enforcement process to include intake, intervention, investigation, cite and fine, discipline, and probation. Are there any questions?
Public comments are open. No public comments.
That concludes my reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Does that conclude the Intervention and Discipline Committee's report?
It does.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 12.0, public comments for items not on the agenda, items for future agenda.
This is the BRN moderator. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on and members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment." The moderator will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When asking your questions, please make sure the question is directed at the host in the dropdown. Also, if any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subject to profane language. While you are free to express criticism on negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating in the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I will be opening it up, the Q&A feature. The Q&A feature is now open. Board President Jackson, we have no public comments.
BRN moderator, thank you very much for all your help and doing what you do. Oh, wait a minute. There looks like there was one person with a public comment.
I'm sorry. One second. No, Board President, it's just a question.
Will staff be able to answer that for that person?
Yes, sir, staff can.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 13.0. This now adjourns the BRN meeting for today as well as June 25th, 2020. There is no further items on the agenda that is needed for tomorrow, so there will not be a meeting tomorrow. And this adjourns our meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for their participation and thank everybody who made public comments also.
Thank you, Board President. Thank you, public. Thank you, BRN staff.
Bye.
We are adjourning.